And Betty's on her way in. She's getting some of that coffee cake. Thank you, Rachel, for bringing that to us. And we'll start. Do you want to start? We got to start with our minutes of the last meeting, do we? Okay. Need a motion for the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Motion by Rob, second by Jim. And if you look at those, or if you have looked at them, do you have any comments, corrections, so forth? I know when our facilities come up, we'll try to ask a question about one particular item in there, but if there's no questions, I'm going to call for the vote on this for the approval of our minutes from our last meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. We will then get into our budget. If you have your budget books with you, is there anyone that needs the budget? I know many of you probably have it on your computer thing there, or whatever you want to call that. And we need a motion to have our discussion and then approval of our budget, which is in the pink pages. Motion by Rob, seconded by Betty. Okay, Scott, you are going to start this for us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And like we have done in years past, and this year you'll find in your packet a high-level slide deck that talks about the overall recommended budget for the entire organization, the general fund budget for the organization, and then the portion of the budget that your committee has oversight of. We've already started to see a little bit of repeat. So for those of you on county operations, you've seen most of this already, but we'll go ahead and walk through things. The FY22 recommended budget across all funds has $118.58 million in revenues or sources and $121.88 million in expenditures or uses. Yes, that is out of balance, and that is because the difference is planned use of fund balance. Two quick anecdotal examples of how we're going to use fund balance this year. First is in the implementation of the Enterprise Finance System, or ERP. If you remember, you awarded a contract earlier this year to the vendor. We've been saving for this project for a number of years, and now we're going to use those reserves over the next several years to fund that project, the first of it being in FY22. Another example, which is more pertinent to this committee, is that Amy's been saving up to do some road projects, and so those reserves have been built up especially for that purpose. Road and bridge projects are here and recommended in this year's budget, and then therefore we'll use those reserves as we've already saved for them. So property taxes, two key points on the property taxes. First is the recommended property tax rate is unchanged, and that means it's 82.41 pennies per $100 of equalized assessed value. It is the Supervisor of Assessment's recommendation that we're going to expect to see a 1.1% increase in the EAV, or our tax base, for the tax bills that will be paid in 2022. High-level summary of just exactly what's in the total levy this year. The blue shaded pie wedges represent the operating portion of the property tax levy. The green represents the pension obligation portion of the levy. You'll notice that this year there is no red pie wedge, which is debt service. And that's because we were able to pay off some short-term debt from projects issued about a decade ago. and that means that for fiscal year 22, we don't need to levy a specific debt service levy. The savings from not having to levy the debt service, though, is still absorbed as we've kept the tax rate, recommended to keep the tax rate the same. And that savings in the debt service levy is shown and experienced in the FICA levy, as we need to build up those reserves to meet seasonal cash flow requirements. If everyone recalls, it's a property tax supported fund, obviously, in FICA, and that last quarter in the early part of the year that it's been the longest since we've had any property tax distributions before we all pay our property taxes in the spring, is when we see some cash flow issues. So we're basically shifting that portion of the total between debt service to FICA. The other big changes represent a decrease in the general fund levy and a corresponding increase in the risk management levy. That's a function of implementing a recommendation from Bellwether in terms of how we fund our risk management services, which includes workman's compensation, unemployment, and general liabilities. And then a small change, keeping it within the 82.41 cents, is we've restored the U of I extension levy back to its pre-COVID levels at just a shade under $113,000. In terms of the entire across all funds oversight that this committee has on the budget, you oversee almost $29 million in revenues and $26.47 million in expenditures. The largest revenue stream, well, you've got three revenue streams that are pretty similar, that being county highway, county motor fuel tax, and the public facility sales tax fund. On the expenditure side, county motor fuel tax is by far and away the largest expenditure, with the public facility sales tax fund being the second largest. In terms of how that breaks down for your committee versus the other committees and the oversight, you have oversight of roughly 19% of the county's revenues and 22% of the county's expenditures. In the general fund, across all committees and all departments, the general fund is recommended as balanced at $47,185,000 and change, almost $186,000. You can see our largest revenue stream is intergovernmental revenues. That's where sales and use taxes, income tax comes in. That's where any of the salary reimbursements that we get for any positions in the general fund is deposited. It's also where the general fund's share of PPRT is deposited. And then our largest expense in the general fund is personnel services at almost $32 million. In terms of your oversight within the general fund, you have only one department that is a general fund department, and that is the Facilities and Grounds Operations Department. It represents 1% of the general fund revenues and 5% of the expenditures. So, Mr. Chairman, that's at a very high level. The budget before you. A couple of things that I'd just like to note for the committee. You will not see later on the agenda a resolution for the annual capital improvement budget and the 5-year capital improvement plan. We will be bringing that back to you later this fall before the end of the fiscal year. And you will, for those of you that are on executive committee, you'll be seeing tomorrow a request from myself to amend the executive committee budget to add money for the American Rescue Plan Act, based on what we've previously talked to the executive committee about in terms of how those allocations might look. So with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions from yourself or the rest of the committee.
Before we continue with questions for Scott, I need a motion to allow Kate Pastucha to be in this meeting by communication, And if I could have a motion concerning that. Rob, seconded by Betty. Calling the question, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Welcome, Kate. I missed getting you into the meeting, but I hope.
I can hardly hear you, but I'm an aye.
I hear you, and you want to be included in the meeting, and I know you'll have some questions, so you're welcome to the meeting. Speaking to this mask, you probably aren't wearing a mask. Okay, questions for our administrator, please? No questions? I'll tell you what, I spent, we had about a 2-hour meeting, a little over 2 hours, because I told my wife I was coming down here last Thursday, and Scott and I went through the budget the best we could, and he explained many things that I had questions for and so forth. In fact, one of the questions not necessarily in our jurisdiction, and I want to point this out to many of you, when we have costs that were really due to probably some other people, and that was one that's on BH15, and I know I've spoken to other county board members about this, but if you go to BH15, it says the ECO, that's elected county officials pension, and we're paying almost $500,000, as you can see there, $428,000, and that goes not only for the elected official, but if their spouse is still living, or if their beneficiary, if they had a beneficiary other than just the spouse being a beneficiary, they not only get that $3,000 death benefit, but they also get to draw 50% of that elected county official's salary. So we will have that until these individuals are all deceased. I'm not wishing for their death and so forth, but that's just one of the debts that we have incurred from elsewhere. Other people with questions? Gee, Christmas, that's good. Everyone satisfied with the budget? I know this. We certainly should thank Scott and his staff for the budget that they did present to us. There didn't seem to be too many problems. I didn't know anyone else with any questions on the present budget. Being no other questions, then I will call for the approval for the 2022 budget for infrastructure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one aye, one nay, rest ayes. It is recommended that you're not a nay? Okay, I must have misheard her then, because she should have said nay, and I should have picked up on that. But when she answered so late, I assumed that she was voting against it. All right, the budget passes unanimously in our committee and is recommended on to the regular county board meeting. Okay, moving on to the actual informational items. Do we have our director, Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Johnson is unable to be with us today. He had some conflicting meetings at the sanitary district, but he's always happy to answer any questions that I'm happy to pass along from the committee if you have any.
I had one question for him, and the only question was, do you know who their auditor is? It says they're going to renew that contract with their same auditor.
I will inquire.
Okay. I mean, it's not earth-shattering. I just wondered who it was, whether it was local or statewide or whatever it happened to be. Anyone else with a question? Okay. Mr. Little is next, and he will give us our report in regards to our master facility plan. Thank you, Mark.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Before I get started, I asked Calvin Curley to join us today. Calvin is our facilities manager, and I just want to make sure that the folks on the committee had a chance to meet Calvin. Calvin's sitting right here. Calvin joins us full-time as our facilities manager in January. In the past year, he's been with the county 16 years. He was at the nursing home and oversaw our maintenance at the nursing home. So I asked him to join us today to make sure everyone knew who Calvin was. So he's doing a great job, by the way. As far as any updates, I just have a couple brief ones. The first one is the AV system upgrade for this room in 402 next door. That RFP has been on the street, and actually on the 15th of this month, we had a number of vendors that were on site for a couple hours. We had a meeting with those vendors. I believe there were 4 that were here. Did a walkthrough of overall our proposal on what we were looking for, gave them the chance to ask questions. They also gave the chance to come into this room, measure this room, come up with any other potential ideas that they thought that would improve part of our plan. So those bids are due October 6th, and then we will come back to you in a month with that recommendation for that project. So we're excited to get that finally moving along, and we'll go over that with you in a month. And the only really other active capital thing we have going right now is the cooling tower replacement out at the JDC. We have a new cooling tower and everything ordered for the JDC, and we're looking at spring when that will be here, and to replace that failing cooling tower out there. So it's really the only 2 items we have, capital items we have going right now.
Questions? Mark, that oil pump that was here at the courthouse that you had a problem with, you got that repaired?
Yes.
Okay.
Calvin got that all taken care of. That was quite the costly repair to get all that done. It took quite a while, but they were managed. It was, if you remember, it was hot during that time, and they were able to manage the building. And I don't believe we actually had any complaints, even though we were down to 1/2 the system, that we kept everything cool. So, yeah, him and the guys did a good job keeping the building cool when it was in the middle 90s. So that was all fixed.
Any other questions for Mark? I don't need to tell Mark this, but I want to emphasize, we got a good man down here. He did a great job for us out at Headington Oaks. Many times I was around out there, and he wasn't the guy that went and sat in a chair and waited until people came to him to tell him what the problems was. When he saw a problem, he took care of it. So I welcome Calvin down here also as an employee. Any other? Thanks, Mark. Okay, we're gonna start with our resolutions, and I've been instructed that the first one there on that grant for JDC is off our agenda. So I need a motion to deal with the county engineer's salary. And motion by Betty, seconded by Rob. He beat you, Dylan. You usually don't put your hand up. Of course, you know, you were on that vacation, you probably slowed down a little bit. Okay.
Yep, I've got it, Mr. Chairman. So this, Mr. Chairman, and for committee members, this is one of the budget-related resolutions this committee does on an annual basis. We are one of 99 counties in the state that participates in this program with IDOT. We have for a number of years. In exchange for a share or an equal amount of the county's federal surface transportation program allotment, the state provides funds to pay for 50% of the county engineer's salary on an annual basis. In turn, they dictate what that salary is going to be. We are ranked 10th out of the 102 counties, and so the value of this resolution is $135,700. It is built into the recommended budget. And with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions.
Personally, I think it's a fair way to do it, especially that we get 50% of that salary. Anybody else with a comment or question? Everybody satisfied with our engineer? And? Okay. I want to, anybody that's new, this, now, I don't know how much she's got to go on her contract, but she originally signs a 6-year contract for us. And do you know what year she's into, Scott?
She's in her second appointment, second 6-year appointment. It's a 6-year appointment that the board makes. I don't remember off the top of my head how far into the 6-year appointment we are, but we're in the second appointment for Ms. McLaren. Amy probably knows if you ask her.
Our legal counsel can tell me whether this question is, what?
So our current term goes through 23.
23, okay, thanks. What about assistant engineer? How's that salary determined?
Based on our internal wage scales.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just checking up on you, Jeff. Okay, no other questions? All those in favor, approval of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you, Kate. I forget, to give you time to call in. All right, the next one is the project on Slane Road. Need a motion for this particular one. Motion by Rob, seconded by Betty. Thank you. And Mr. Gillis, you got it. Okay.
This project's been in front of the committee several times. Should be the last time the committee sees
Jeff,
this.
can you speak directly into the mic so you can project so Kate can hear you on the phone?
Yes, sorry. Is that better? Okay, do my best. The committee has seen this project several times. This should be the last time the committee will see this. Akron Township wanted us to use their rebuild funds to purchase a culvert, and then the township is going to install the culvert themselves. We held a materials bid letting on September 14th, and the low bid came from Metal Culverts. Their corporate office is Jefferson City, Missouri, but I know they also have a plant, I think, in Monmouth and possibly Havana. Their low bid is $59,675.75. This is all township funds. There are no county funds in this at all. It is before you because the county has to oversee the township motor fuel tax funds.
Now the $59,000, is that just for the culvert, or is that for materials for these guys to do the work as well?
That's just for the culvert.
Just for the culvert?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're not going to bring it back to us again?
I hope not.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff? All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kate. All those opposed? Motion is approved. Going on to the next resolution. It's for federal government to participate in phase 1, phase 2 of this Pulsifer Road project. And I need a motion on that by Dylan, seconded by Betty.
Back in July, the board approved a preliminary engineering agreement with Hanson Professional Services to do design work on the Pulsifer Road rehabilitation. We're going to use federal funds to help pay for the engineering. IDOT was a little behind getting us this agreement. Normally we like to take this with an agreement, but it's a little bit different than normal. So this is the agreement so we can utilize federal funds for the project for the agreement with Hanson Professional Services that was approved in July. So
And these are just for the engineering?
just for the engineering.
Just for the engineering. Mhm. All right. Anybody with any questions? Man, you guys are easy today, aren't you? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Nays? All right. Ayes have it. So a resolution has been adopted. We'll go to the county board. And our next resolution is participation with the state of Illinois. And I know you've heard this before, the Dogtown Lane Bridge that we will be fixing up. And that is on page 66 if any of you are using your hard copies like I am. Need a motion on that, please, by Dylan, seconded by Rob.
So structure number 30072-3105 on Dogtown Lane is 126 foot long. It's got a sufficiency rating of 46.8 feet. It was built in 1977 and carries about 200 vehicles per day. The bridge is structurally deficient. It's in need of replacement. We have been working with on plans, and the job is scheduled for a bid letting on November 5th through IDOT. We'll use federal funds for the project. The project's estimated to cost $1.7 million. The federal share of that will be $1.36 million, and the county share will be $340,000. We're asking in the resolution to appropriate $360,000 in county bridge funds, just in case we have some cost overruns during the contract. Again, this is just the federal agreement with IDOT, so we can utilize the federal funds for the project.
Now you're saying up here where we've got the amount 340,000, we really are going to ask for 360,000.
Yes.
Okay. And if you don't use all of it, then
Yes.
it'll go back into the bridge fund.
Right.
Okay, anybody with any questions for Jeff? And you say that is going to be in November, so depending on the weather.
We'll start cutting trees down probably in March, so we don't endanger any bats in the area. And then once the weather gets going, then we'll start the project. So probably March or April, depending on the weather.
You're going to start clearing in February.
Yeah, trees have to be down before April 1st.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. And I think we're about to our last resolution. And that is got to do with the sidewalk agreement that we want to make with the state. It's a letter of commitment. All those in, I should say, I'm getting ahead of myself. Need a motion on that? Motion made by Rob, second by Betty.
All right, so IDOT is planning on replacing the bridge on Airport Road that crosses I-474. If you're familiar with the area, county jurisdiction ends approximately at Dirksen Parkway. They're going to replace that bridge. They've indicated that they can justify putting sidewalks and bicycle accommodations on the bridge, but they have a policy where they will not put sidewalks on their roadways unless local municipality takes over the sidewalk. So what they now are requesting, internal policy, I'm not sure, but they're now requesting either we sign a letter of commitment saying, yes, we'll take over the sidewalk when it is built, or a resolution of non-participation, which says we've been offered this and we say no thank you. The Highway Department is recommending to pass the resolution of non-participation. This is a sidewalk on another jurisdiction's roadway. Everybody thinks, well, it's sidewalk, it'll be okay, but we have to look 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line. Anytime IDOT is going to overlay that section of road, those the handicap ramps, the ADA ramps for the sidewalk have to be analyzed and possibly updated. If there's new standards, or if they're substandard, or if they're damaged, we would have to pay for that. Any drainage involved with the sidewalk, we would be responsible for. Anything else that comes up and IDOT says, hey, this needs to get fixed, or Curry County, you're going to need to fix this. And it's something that we would not be able to maybe look for quite as well in advance as we do of our other projects. The board's well aware of the road needs that we have and the small amount of funding we have to do everything we need. So the department's recommending we pass the resolution of non-participation.
Let me ask you, you said basically we only have to keep these up if the state decides to go on with a project that would, involve those sidewalks and so forth. But shouldn't we try to keep those sidewalks up, especially for under the ADA, under the disabilities people, people who would use walkers, or people who would use wheelchairs and things such as that. Wouldn't we want to maintain those, even if the state wasn't involved in doing something?
Well, we maintain our sidewalk on our jurisdiction, but this job is on IDOT's jurisdiction. This is not our section of road. Several years ago, they asked us to take over when they redid Farmington Road. They said, hey, we want to build sidewalk. Do you guys want it? Well, we have no roads anywhere near Farmington Road that we would want to be down and maintaining sidewalks. So that's just kind of I think it's a slippery slope where we go and take jurisdiction of part of somebody else's road.
Jimmy?
Well, first question would be, nowhere else in the county do we have any arrangement like this, do we?
Not that we know of.
And so, that being said, though, I want to thank both of you for bringing this assessment forward. Not that I don't agree with accessibility and walking, but this is basically a highway that runs through there, even though we have on Airport. And our practice has been lately to get out of the business of roads that we don't want to maintain and turn them over to municipalities, and let alone trying to assume the liability and everything else. And as anybody knows, that highway goes over there. If you plow, that sidewalks is going to get covered with snow in the middle of winter and create liability issues for us also. So I know we would like sidewalks and everything, but this is the right recommendation. So kudos to both of you for making that, and I support you.
Any other questions? Okay, voting on the resolution. Everybody in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on, we have our annual maintenance appropriation for the materials on the motor fuel tax. Need a motion to carry on here with this. Betty? Seconded by Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our annual appropriation for county motor fuel tax funds. This is the money we used for maintenance operations, which would include things like seal coating the material for the oil and rock for seal coating, for patching, for pipe culverts, for signage, those sorts of things. It also includes the amount that we contract out to the city of Peoria to do our pavement markings for us and for the pavement marking material. And it also includes some the expenses of salary for some of our highway maintainer workers. We only purchase the materials that we need, so we may or may not use this entire amount, but we will not go over it without coming back to you if we were to need more in an extreme situation where we would need additional materials. But it's our annual appropriation. IDOT requires this before we can go out and get quotations for these materials. I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
$3 million enough for you?
I hope so.
Okay, everybody understand this is the annual approval of this resolution for our highway garage. And they've been pretty good at meeting the budget and so forth. No questions for Amy? All those in favor of adopting this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Are you voting, Kate? She, okay, I didn't hear you. I know my wife says I'm hard of hearing, but looking through today's budget as well as our resolutions, you swiftly did those. I commend all of you, so forth. Just a reminder to this committee is going to get some recommendations from Scott and his staff in regard to our priorities, and there's a lot of these priorities that are going to be very, very important. So at a later date, after we get these, and we'll be able to use some of the American Rescue Plan to pay for some of these things, but start thinking hard for yourself. What is in the best interest? I should say this was under miscellaneous. My comments that I'm making, and we know there's a number of things that we've got an importance to, of course, construct, and this will, I think, give us our best bang for our buck. And I'm looking out there at the highway department right now, which needs several different things to that we have heard throughout the year that they're going to really benefit from if we're able to adopt some projects for them. And I'm sure Amy is, and Jeff as well. They have talked to Scott about some of those things. I'm using them because they are here, and we need to tell them we're in support of them. Anything else under miscellaneous?
Mr. Chairman, I have an answer to your question from earlier in the meeting. The Sanitary District uses Meister, Hilton, and Chitwood as their external auditors. Meister, Hilton, and Chitwood.
Thank you. Is there any other miscellaneous? No other miscellaneous? The meeting is adjourned. And we were easy.